Welcome back to Askewed Reviews, and we have another viewer request today, and it is for the 1993 film Surf Ninjas. Here is your trivia question for today. What trend do the boys participate in when they are in the car near the beginning of the film? The answer will be at the end of this episode. So, our film starts off in sunny California, where we meet our two main characters, a pair of brothers named Johnny and Adam, and their best friend Iggy. Now, the brothers live with their adoptive father Mac, who has been apparently keeping a secret from them for quite some time. One day, a band of ninjas appear and try to attack the boys, but in the process, they manage to kidnap Mac. A mysterious man named Zach saves the boys from these ninjas and then begins to tell them of their history. Johnny and Adam's parents were the rulers of a country, and they are in fact crown princes of the nation of Patusan. One day, an evil warlord named Colonel Chi, along with his army, took out Adam and Johnny's parents and then took control of Patusan. Zach was able to help the boys escape, as they left with a local fisherman who was good friends with the royal family named Mac. Now that Johnny is turning 16, the boys must fulfill their prophecy, where Johnny will become a great warrior and Adam will become a seer of the future, which apparently he can use his Sega Game Gear to do so. And as for Iggy, he will just come along for the ride. So the boys will have quite a bit to deal with on their journey back to Patusan, including arranged marriages, a now half robotic Colonel Chi, and trying to figure out how to run a nation. Will they be able to do all of this and still find time for some tasty waves? Originally, the movie was going to be directed by its writer, Dan Gordon. But when casting came around, Gordon wanted one of the surfer characters to be played by his son. The head of New Line Cinema at the time, Bob Shea, did not want to go this direction and wanted it to be played by an actual actor. They argued about this so much that Shea ended up firing Gordon. Neil Israel was then brought in to be the director of the film. So before going with the name of Surf Ninjas, the original title was either going to be Surf Ninjas of the South China Seas or Surf Warriors. The original concept for the movie was an action adventure that was somewhere between Indiana Jones and the Goonies. Then Neil Israel, Rob Schneider, and a few other people rewrote it and made it much more of a full on comedy. Schneider was actually the one who came up with the celebratory phrase of Quan Su. There was talks at one point of bringing in either Jackie Chan or Hulk Hogan to make a cameo in the movie. Speaking of cameos, these two surfer dudes that walk up to the destroyed diner were actually the film's script doctors. In fact, the one on the right is Mitchell Hurwitz, who would eventually create Arrested Development. Leslie Nielsen plays the character of Colonel Chi. Nielsen, by the way, is famous for doing one thing on almost every movie set that he's been on: carrying around a fart noise maker, and this movie was no exception. Tone Loc appears as the character of Lieutenant Spence in this movie, and like most movies in the 90s that he appeared in, he added a song to the soundtrack. In real life, Zach and Johnny are father and son, as this is the duo of Ernie Reyes Sr. and Jr. Kelly who plays May, and Ernie Reyes Jr., who plays Johnny, both have some special connections to the world of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Kelly Hu is the voice of Karai in the Nickelodeon Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon series. Ernie Reyes Jr. was the stunt double for the character of Donatello in the first live action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie and played Kino in the second live action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. He was even offered the physical role of Donatello in the third Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, but turned it down so he could do this movie. It was actually due to the success of the second Turtles movie, The Secret of the Ooze, that New Line Cinema saw potential in Ernie Reyes Jr. being a main character. They even signed him to a three-picture deal. Unfortunately, New Line Cinema barely did any advertising or marketing, so this movie ended up flopping and they terminated that deal. Reyes, by the way, is a fourth degree black belt in Taekwondo. Do you happen to know what Rob Schneider, Ernie Reyes Jr., and Ernie Reyes Sr. all have in common? All three of them are Filipino. In case you didn't know, Patusan is a fictional country. But here's something that's really funny. They apparently said that the character that Ernie Reyes Jr. played in the television series Sidekicks from 1986 was also from Patusan. This movie was filmed in Thailand, California, and Hawaii. So there is in actuality a Surf Ninjas video game for the Sega Game Gear. But there also was a Surf Ninjas video game created by Sega that only the people on set were able to play, and that's what they show in the movie. What's interesting is originally they did want to go with the Game Boy instead of the Game Gear, but Game Gear won out because their screen was in color while Game Boy at this time was not. And because they used the Game Gear, Sega actually financed part of the production. If you were curious and didn't hear it mentioned in the movie, Adam's game that was replaced on his Game Gear was Shinobi. Here's another piece of trivia somewhat related to a video game. The outfits worn by the ninjas in this movie would be used again the following year in the video game adaptation Street Fighter, as it was worn by Guile and his army. So it unfortunately never got made, but there was actually talks of an animated series of Surf Ninjas. So when it comes to the film Surf Ninjas, this is definitely a movie I look back on fondly, but rewatching it nowadays, I do have to say, it's not all that great. It's definitely fun, it's definitely entertaining, but it's definitely lacking in a lot of places as well. So I'm going to give this one a 2 out of 5. Now, if you did enjoy this movie, other movies I recommend checking out are the Three Ninjas series, Double Dragon, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series, and The Pest. And now, time for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode. What trend do the boys participate in when they are in the car near the beginning of the film? In the film, they call it moto surfing. The idea of this is that everyone, as long as there's no roof on the vehicle, stands up and coasts along as if they're sort of surfing. And then apparently people are also supposed to grab paddles as if they're somehow pushing the car along. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews. And if there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.